This episode is for the writer who finally carved out a 2-hour block to write. You have your tea, your candle, you close the door to your office, you put on your noise-canceling headphones even, you open up your memoir document, and you brace yourself. You scroll for a little bit through the pages, tweak here, revise there, and you're not really sure where to dive in. You add a comment that says in all caps, revisit later. And then, even though you promised yourself that you wouldn't, you open up Instagram. But just for that saved post, right? And then before you know it, it is time to make dinner and your block is gone. If any of that felt even a little familiar, you're going to eat this episode up. Today, I'm walking you through the 6 creative patterns I see occur most often with memoir writers, and I give you the antidote for each one. Let's go. You are listening to the Memoir Method podcast, the place for writers, readers, and anyone who appreciates the collective power of our stories. In this podcast, we explore the impact of memoir alongside an examination of writing techniques and strategies used in the genre. Whether you are a writer looking for inspiration and guidance or a passionate reader seeking meaningful connections through shared experiences, the Memoir Method podcast is your go-to conversation spot. I'm your host, Charlotte, editor, writer, and the heart behind Charlotte Writes. Let's get started. Most writers do not need more advice. That's not what you're looking for. Maybe you started listening to this podcast because you did want memoir advice from a memoir editor, but if you've been listening to me for any amount of time, you may have realized that I don't do tips and tricks. You can find information anywhere. We're in the age of information. The internet has literally everything that you could need to write your memoir. So that's not actually what you need. You can find it anywhere. What you're looking for is an explanation for why all of that advice doesn't seem to be able to work for you. You feel like something is broken, but you cannot figure out what it is. Maybe you've invested in other programs or editors hoping that they would bring you the clarity that you need, but that experience just muddied the waters even more. As I have worked with writers for so long, I have noticed certain self-sabotaging patterns that keep you muddied, keep you stuck. I call them your memoir kryptonite, and today I'm going to break them down for you and give you the antidote. You ready? First, though, you have to understand what I call the rewrite loop. I break this pattern down in detail in my free training, The Memoir Breakthrough, which I will link in the show notes, but the Spark Notes version is very simple. Okay, if you start off with first draft energy, right? That is when you're so excited you can't wait to dive in. Once your first draft energy has depleted, however, and it always does, you go into a state of overwhelm. You realize that you don't know what you don't know, and you spiral. This is where you are second-guessing yourself, and that imposter syndrome is really loud. I like to call this stage the I've made a huge mistake phase. You're like, oh no, what do I do now? From there, you go into fix-it mode. This is where you're going to listen to every podcast episode, download every freebie, consume a lot of writing and editing content, really go into your draft again. This is where you might even decide to hire your first editor. But your energy going into working with an editor is a save me energy, not a guide me energy. One has you flailing, hoping that someone can know what you don't, can help you fix what you've messed up. And the other has you partnering with intentional support. That former energy, save me, is going to loop you right back to that second stage. Overwhelm, creative paralysis, imposter syndrome. Eventually, you'll go back into the fix-it stage. But do you see how it's really easy to loop between those two stages? The latter energy, however, guide me, that is going to move you into the authorship stage. This is where you have creative clarity. And this is where you finish your memoir. So again, you can listen to the Memoir Breakthrough training for free. It's on my website. I will link to that in the show notes. That is where I break this cycle down much more deeply. But it is also important to understand as we're talking about memoir kryptonite. So identifying your memoir kryptonite and defusing it is what will break the rewrite loop for you and get you into a healthy headspace for revising and ultimately finding the right support that you need. So let's get into what this memoir kryptonite actually is and the different manifestations of it and how it shows up in your life. I'm going to outline what each one is, what it's costing you, and then give you the antidote plus one do this today task. So the first memoir kryptonite is insecurity. This is one that I've seen so many times. With insecurity as your primary kryptonite, you are waiting for someone else to validate you. You are second guessing everything that you write. You hesitate talking about your work, and you're waiting for something to happen to make you feel like a real writer. The cost to this memoir kryptonite is both practical and also really, really personal. If you don't trust yourself, you're not going to be able to trust anyone else to help you. I've done this on Instagram before, so forgive me if this is a repeat for you. If you cannot champion your own work more than anyone else, then I'm just going to be an expensive cheerleader. Like, I can cheerlead you all day long till I'm blue in the face. But if you do not believe that what you're doing is worth doing and that you deserve to say it, then my words can only go so far with you. I can only support you so much, because you can spend literal years writing and revising. But if you do not tackle your insecurity head on, you will never lock into real creative momentum that you're desiring. You'll never finish and you'll never publish. I know that sounds really harsh, but it's important to understand the cost of this creative pattern. And I'm not here to mince words. So your antidote, though, with insecurity, it is as simple and as challenging as choosing into a massive identity shift. You get to be obsessed with what you're writing, even if no one else is yet. You get to persist even when no one else knows what you're doing. You get to keep showing up even if you get rejection letters. You get to clap the loudest for yourself because, damn it, you are a writer. You get to decide that you're a writer right now. This is where you stop asking for permission. If insecurity is your primary memoir kryptonite, you have to decide that you're a writer right now, that you're an author right now. I want you to ditch that aspiring writer crap. Nope, you are an author, and you're an author right now. Okay, that is the energy, that's the identity I need you to lock into for you to neutralize the insecurity kryptonite, okay? This antidote, it does take persistence. It takes resilience if you want it to stick. So let me get you started. Again, you are a writer. You are an author. You get to write your story, and you get to write it well. And again, I can say that. Maybe it makes you feel good right now. If you do not do the work that you need to recode that into your own psyche, then again, I'm just a cheerleader in a podcast. Okay. If you want to kickstart your identity shift, go download my magnetic memoir prompt pack. This is free. It cuts through generic writing advice to tap you into who you want to be as a writer, how you want to show up for your reader. It really meets you in that author energy. It's free. You can go access that in the show notes. The next memoir kryptonite is the scatterbrain. For the scatterbrained memoir writer, this is where your head is going 100 miles per hour in a dozen different directions. You have at least 3 notebooks with the different ideas. Your drafts are multiplying like rabbits. And as my favorite scatterbrained client put it, you have a draft that looks like a murder board with no connecting dots. The cost of the scatterbrain is one that compounds a bit. You keep generating material without tightening your manuscript. The draft gets more and more unwieldy, and that keeps you in the rewrite loop. It keeps you in that overwhelm, right? Your antidote is that you need an intentional focus. I want you to name exactly what you're writing and what you want to say with it. If I asked you right now to tell me what you are writing about and you ramble for 15 minutes, time to tighten it up. When you have a defined focus, however, you can rattle off to me exactly what you're writing in 30 seconds. That's your goal. That's what I want you to be able to do, because when you can do that, then your revision becomes much more strategic, much more ordered. And it's not that all the ideas that you have to pick only one of them. It's knowing how to layer those different ideas on top of each other, because likely your ideas are all in conversation with each other, but you need to pick a focus, one to kind of be your main thing. And then after that, we can, again, layer the other ideas through that to give a lot of depth to your story. You also will actually benefit from going through the magnetic memoir prompt pack, because this resource is all about helping you articulate that focus, articulate what you actually want to say with your memoir. Our next kryptonite is flakiness. This is the writer who stops and starts. You have post-its everywhere. You'll go for months without touching your draft, and then maybe you go manic for a couple of weeks before ghosting it again. If I were a gambling person, I'd put a lot of money on the probability that you are an ADHD creative. The cost here is that writing feels harder than it should. Not only are you not making the progress that you want to make, you are also having to re-enter that creative headspace every time. And by the time you've found a groove again, you've either run out of literal time to work on it in your writing session, or you lose your energy. So the stop and start jerkiness is not working for you. It's not working for your story. Your antidote, dear, is accountability. This is a fun side note. With every one of these memoir kryptonites I'm outlining today, I have based it on an actual client. When I was outlining this, I realized, oh, this is so-and-so, that's so-and-so. So the client that I thought of with this kryptonite told me when we first started working together that, quote, procrastination is my superpower. So first off, awareness is everything. It's really helpful to be able to name, oh yeah, that's actually something that I really struggle with, and be able to do that without feeling shame around it. And second, that is why your antidote is external accountability. This is going to be your saving grace. So for you, I want you to email or DM me on Instagram. Remember, I am on Instagram at the.memoir.coach. And I want you to share with me your writing plan for the next month. Even just stating your plan out loud to someone else can help. And if you need real consistent accountability, stick around to the end of this episode, okay? Another memoir kryptonite, perfectionism. Oh, my dear perfectionists, I love you. You have been rewriting your memoir for years, maybe even more than a decade. I've actually worked with several writers who have been working on their draft for more than a decade. I love seeing them actually finish. You are obsessive with polishing your draft and making sure that everything sounds just right. You might even be the writer who emails me with, fix it, please. I have literally received an email with that plea. If you stay in the perfectionism zone, you are losing the forest for the trees. Your cost is that your story never actually gets clearer. Your sentences may sound nice, but they're not saying what you want them to say, and you know it, but you just don't know how to get there. That's where the perfectionism is really digging in. The ultimate cost here is that you will never feel like your book is ready to publish. So you might stay in that aspiring author zone instead of published author. Your antidote is decisiveness. I need you to make a choice. I need you to move forward, and I need you to be okay with it. You need to decide what you want to say. Stop, zoom out, figure out what you actually want to be saying with your story, with your memoir, and then watch as your writing sessions simplify and your brain quiets. This is a really wonderful way to quiet the noise in your brain and deactivate that perfectionism. So just like my favorite scatterbrained writers, you get to decide what you want to say, and then you get to stick with it and watch as your writing sessions and your writing strategy simplifies. You also would benefit from the magnetic memoir prompt pack. As I've been outlining this episode, I'm seeing just how adaptable this particular freebie is to all of the memoir kryptonites. And then when you get to the hiring an editor stage, you need someone who will keep you in your decisive zone and call you out on your perfectionist tendencies. Okay, you need someone who is a partner in a way where you are the boss. Again, you're the one paying, you're the boss, but someone who also is not going to let you get away with circling the drain. Memoir kryptonite number 5, discouragement. And maybe this is a kryptonite that hits everyone at some point. This is the writer whose writing practice has faded away a little bit. You've stopped writing. You don't like what you're writing. And within the rewrite loop specifically, you live in the I've made a huge mistake zone. You don't often move into the fix it zone, because when you do, you're just overwhelmed. And so you go back to what's familiar, which is I've made a huge mistake. Just because something is familiar, though, does not mean that it's what you want. So these are the writers where I'll ask them, okay, how are you feeling about your memoir this week? And they'll shrug and say, I don't know. Fine, I guess. Guys, as an editor, that attitude is a huge red flag for me. And that tells me this is not actually about your draft at all. This is about something so much deeper. The cost of this discouragement is more about how you feel about yourself than what is actually on the page. And this discouragement may also activate the insecurity kryptonite, which now you have double kryptonite. Is that a thing? Writing feels unsafe for you, and it's activating a lot of your vulnerabilities that you don't know how to navigate yet. So what you're writing doesn't land because you've lost your vision. This is going to happen to all of us at some point. Also, your antidote is a fresh perspective. I need you to get out of your own head a little bit. I want to give your system a creative shock and try something new. So this is going to look different than just swap a scene around or write a poem. Like, I'm not talking about a fresh perspective, like do something different with your manuscript. I'm talking about start to think different. Pull in a different mindset, a different like mental and emotional approach. I'm laughing a little bit at myself right now, but I also want you to go through the Magnetic Memoir Prompt Pack today. I want you to go through those exercises today. This resource is a completely different approach to writing and memoir writing specifically. It will take you half an hour-ish, and it's going to infuse some of that life back into your project because, again, this introduces a completely new mindset toward your memoir, a completely new mental and emotional and creative approach. This isn't just a bunch of writing prompts, okay? Finally, the last memoir kryptonite that we have is the hobbyist. So this one is a little bit different from the others because it's not necessarily attached to that overwhelm that will define the rewrite loop. The hobby writer writes mostly when they're feeling inspired. And I will tell you that if you wait for only when you're feeling inspired, you will not write a lot. And I say that from experience. You might not touch your work for months. Maybe you even forget about the details a little bit. You might even be a multi-passionate and you're just juggling several projects at once, one of which is your memoir. The cost with this one is a little sneaky. You'll spend years and years tinkering, and then you'll hit a point where you're like, actually, I do want to finish this, but how? What do I do next? Your memoir is perpetually in progress and you've gotten really used to it. This is much more of a passive type of kryptonite, but again, it's really sneaky. You don't know how to get momentum going. If you stay in the hobbyist zone, you probably won't finish your memoir and you will have some regret when at some point you're like, oh, I really wish I'd have finished this 10 years ago. Your antidote is so straightforward. I want you to make a timeline. You need a timeline for your work, okay? You need deadlines. You need to be able to see your memoir as a project with milestones to hit and not just a living document on your laptop. For your action step, I don't actually have a specific free resource for this, but pick a date no further out than 4 to 5 months from now and decide that that is when you will have your finished draft. Again, not a final draft, but a draft you can actually do something with. I always tell writers when they come to me saying, I haven't really started, I don't know what to do. And I say, you can't edit a blank page, so just start writing. If this is your first draft, your 7th, whatever, just finish it. Finish whatever draft you're on. Set a deadline. This is when you want to do it, okay? And if you have a dash of the flakiness kryptonite, sometimes these two can go together. Stick around for a few more minutes. I have a really good place for you. Okay, so we have our 6 styles of memoir kryptonite. Insecurity, scatterbrained, flakiness, perfectionism, discouragement, and hobbyist. None of these creative patterns is a death knell. None of these actually mean anything about you as a writer. I really just want you to examine this as data about how you work and how you are wired creatively. We're looking for these patterns that you get to then rewire as the author. I mentioned this earlier, but I pulled each of these archetypes from real clients that I've worked with. And so I know how to recode them with you. First, I created a quiz just for you called the What is My Memoir Kryptonite, so that you can learn your exact brand of memoir kryptonite. Maybe you listened to all of these and some of them resonated, some of them didn't. But if you need one to focus on, go take the quiz. It takes 2 minutes. The feedback that I've already been getting is, holy shit, you're spot on. Someone even told me that, quote, my mother couldn't have called me out better. So this quiz, again, pulled from real writers. This will help give you a lot of clarity to what is actually tripping you up and how you are maybe subconsciously self-sabotaging your memoir. So you can go to the link in the show notes. It's also charlottewrites.co, that's co/quiz, to find out what your primary memoir kryptonite is. Please email me or DM me on Instagram to let me know what you get. I love hearing from you. I have affection for each and every one of these archetypes, and I love to hear where you are at with your memoir specifically. Secondly, the Memoir method is currently open for enrollment. For my writers who really thrive with external accountability, this container was created for you. And if you're listening to this episode and thinking, okay, I see myself in these patterns, one or more of them, and I don't want to stay here anymore, this is the exact work that we do inside of the Memoir method. We break those patterns and give you a tool set to adapt to your story, to actually tell the story you want to tell. This program is not giving you more advice that you have to figure on your own. It is about getting you out of the rewrite loop and into a clear, structured revision process with support, feedback, and accountability as you actually move your manuscript forward. Our spring cohort kicks off next week on April 16th. So consider this your invitation to join me. I will not be hosting the Memoir method again until the fall. So if 2026 is your year to neutralize your kryptonite, I would love to see you with us next week. Head to the link in the show notes to learn more about that and to get your spot. I had so much fun creating this episode for you and the Memoir Kryptonite quiz because I was thinking of real writers and real clients. I know how you're wired, and I know how to harness that beautiful creative wiring so that it's working with you and not against you. Like I said, I'd love to know your quiz results, and also I would really love to see you inside of the spring cohort of the Memoir Method with me. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next week. You've just listened to an episode of the Memoir Method podcast. The Memoir Method podcast is presented by Charlotte Writes. If you liked what you heard, the best way to support the show is to subscribe through your preferred podcast player. And if you're feeling especially inspired, I'd love it if you left a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Leaving a review really does help other readers and writers like yourself find the show. If you want to continue the conversation, you can find me on my website at charlottewrites.co or on Instagram at charlottejanewrites. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next time. And remember that you have a story that matters.